Hello, my name is Darlene Stalker. I'm the Associate Director in the Office of Advising and Career Services. My job is to make sure that students graduate career ready. So the first thing that I tell students is that you are probably not going to escape having some nerves when you are going on to an interview. But the one thing that you will want to keep in mind is the employer may be interviewing you, but you are also interviewing the employer. I think that helps a lot with some nerves that you might have. The next thing I tell students is to make sure that you are prepared, because opportunity meets preparation, and that is key. You want to make sure that you have a good first impression, because the reality is you don't get a second first impression. When you're thinking about how you look, your appearance, okay? You don't want to have anything that detracts away from what you intellectually bring to the table. So the next thing that I tell students is to smile, okay? And sometimes that's a little difficult when you're very nervous, but make sure that you put a smile on your face. If you do have a handshake, make sure it's a firm handshake. Make sure that you make eye contact with the employer, and make sure that you're dressed appropriately. Don't take anything to chance. The day before the interview, make sure that you know where you're going. Make sure that you know where you're parking. Make sure that you know if there's a long walk between where you're parking and where your interview is going to take place. Remember to arrive at least 10 or 15 minutes early. If you arrive on time, you're late. So one of the first questions that you will be asked is, tell me about yourself. A lot of times students feel like, okay, well, I need to give my life story, but you don't. Do not overshare. You do not have to relate to the employer anything about your personal life. Remember, you're there to interview for a job. Avoid cliches. So I know that some of you have heard questions like, tell me what is your biggest strength? Tell me what is your greatest weakness? And a cliche would be, well, I'm a perfectionist, okay? Employers have heard that a lot. So come up with something. I would suggest something that might be defined as a weakness, but then turn it into a strength. You always want to end on a positive note. There are going to be different types of interviews that you're going to have, okay? I wish that I could say that when you go into an interview, it will be just one style. But the reality is you could have multiple styles of interviews within one setting. So when I say that, I mean, you could have a one-on-one with someone in an interview and them take you directly to a group meeting. One thing that employers will often do is they will ask you a question that's called a brain teaser, something that's totally off the chart that you wouldn't even expect. So when we do mock interviews in our office, we've often asked students questions like, if you could be a TV character, what TV character would you be and why? So they just kind of throw those brain teasers out there because they want to see how your brain works and how you react to kind of offbeat situations, how you respond to that. Sometimes an employer may say, tell me about a time that you had a conflict with a coworker. Tell me about a time when you had a conflict with a professor. So start thinking about what those situations are and have something in your back pocket that you can talk about. And when you are asked, and typically you will be at the end of the interview, do you have any questions for us? Employers kind of dismiss you as a candidate if you don't have at least 3 to 5 questions that you ask them. There is nothing wrong with taking a portfolio with you and questions that you want to ask, because the reality is when you go into a job interview, it can be very stressful. And often because of that stress, there might be questions that you want to ask that you forget. Questions that you might ask them is, what type of management style do you have here? What type of professional development opportunities are there? One question you will not ask is, how much does this pay? Because you will not talk about pay until you are presented with an offer. In a follow-up, I would suggest that you send the employer an email and you thank them for the interview. Indicate in that email, please thank everyone that was involved in this process. I thoroughly appreciate it, the opportunity. I want to reiterate my desire, my interest in this position. Thanks for watching this video. If you need more tips on how to interview or how to land that perfect career job, please click on the links that are provided on the screen. Thank you.